度の脳障害を持って生まれたトーマス君。人間として生きることのできない息子だから死なせてあげたいと両親が訴訟に踏み切りました。1993年秋、イギリスのハンバーサイド州に住むクリードン夫妻の間に生まれたトーマス君は重度の脳障害を持っていました。以来主治医はトーマス君の回復を目指してあらゆる治療を施すんですが、症状は一向に良くなりません。両親はこのまま治療を続けても人間らしく生きられないと息子の死ぬ権利を主張し、裁判で争うことにしました。クリードン夫妻の苦渋に満ちた決断はイギリス社会に大きな波紋を呼びました。イギリス BBC のリポートです。
毎週木曜日の夜、クリードン夫妻は息子のトーマス君を養育のない家に連れて帰ります。両親としてはこの子を死なせてやりたいと考えています。
I think he's been let down. He's been let down very badly because life is not about going through suffering day after day. Life is not about being kept alive totally artificially like this, and by doing this they're cheapening life.
Feel bad. Feel bad, Tom.
トーマス君の瞳は動いても何かを見ているわけではありません。しかし聴覚、記憶に関して脳の働きがほとんどないのです。人とのコミュニケーションは全くありません。これほど重い障害を負いながら生きている例はないと感想を述べた医師もいます。
I'm afraid Thomas went against all the expectations and didn't conform to the ideal that he was supposed to have, that he was supposed to be a perfect baby.
Is that what most parents expect, do you think, a perfect baby?
Of course they do, yeah, of course they do.
At the age of 2 and a half, Thomas's brain is less developed than that of a newborn baby. He can't move his arms and legs. He has severe cerebral palsy. He can neither see nor hear and suffers frequent epileptic fits. While Thomas spent the first month of his life in hospital, his parents were left to try and come to terms with what had happened.
It's very different to what you expected.
Didn't bring our baby home with us. The cot was empty, and that little boy who should have been in our family was very, very poorly and faced an awful future. It was absolutely devastating. The shock of discovering that he'd sustained such awful brain damage was the worst feeling in the world. It was as if Thomas had died, and yet he was still there.
初めは数週間の命と思われていたトーマス君。もしも何かあったらそのまま死なせてあげようと誰もが感じていました。しかし栄養は与え続けるということでした。赤ちゃんの基本的な本能である吸うことも飲み込むこともできないトーマス君。これも脳の損傷がひどいことの表れです。生命を維持するためにはチューブによる人工的な栄養補給が必要です。この2年半というもの、トーマス君は完全に人工的な栄養補給に頼ってきました。
What would you like to happen to Thomas?
What would I like to happen to Thomas? I would like Thomas to be allowed to die in a controlled manner, under sedation, to reduce any distress he might feel via the withdrawal of the feeding tube. If there's no benefit, and we don't perceive there is a benefit, then who are we we doing it? That's the question we've asked.
病院との対立はトーマス君が生まれて1週間後に始まりました。息子の脳に損傷があることを知った両親は人工的に栄養を与えることに反対したのですが、病院側は栄養チューブを使わざるを得ないと説明したのです。息子は空腹な様子すら見せたことがないと両親は言います。基本的人権を守るために苦しめられているだけです。トーマス君は1歳になるまで栄養補給をするといつも戻して即死そうになりました。両親は医師に何度も死なせてやってくれと頼みました。
I'd had more difficulties in the past with people saying to me that this profoundly handicapped child of mine deserves more in the way of treatment. People said that to me, wanted their profoundly handicapped child with severe chest infections to get ventilated when he was terribly ill. Nobody had ever before said to me they want their child to have its feeding stopped.
Never?
Never. No.
We were unique, apparently.
They were horrified because parents naturally want their children to be given every chance, and we had come to the conclusion that our little boy should not be put through anymore, and we were made to feel as if we were very, very unique.
果たして人工的な栄養補給は内科的治療なのか、それとも基本的人権なのか。この点について専門家の意見は大きく分かれています。治療だと思えば、これは生命維持装置に頼っていることに変わりがなく、何らかの利点がなければ続ける意味がありません。トーマス君の場合は、本人を大切にするというより、無理強いをしていると言えそうです。
I think it's a basic human right to be offered food. I think it's a fundamental part of existence that we take food in. I draw the line where we have to put tubes in to feed patients. That is a very active intention to sustain life at whatever cost.
It's medical treatment.
Absolutely.
You accept not all doctors feel the same as you do about the purpose of artificial feeding.
No, I think there's bound to be a variation.
And is that fair on parents like the Creedons?
Well, I think most paediatricians would place great importance on what parents are wanting.
But you didn't.
Yes, but this was a much more profound and unusual situation.
困難かつ異例なケースだからこそ特別な配慮をしてほしいというのが両親の希望なのです。彼らは息子が人工的な栄養補給と薬だけに頼って生きる現実をちゃんと見てほしいと感じています。
Thomas is a human being. We can't judge the worth of a person by the way they look, by their behavior. That's completely unacceptable in our society. That has to be remembered. However disturbing and distressing it is to look at Thomas, none of us know what's going on inside him and what his potential is for being able to engage in society in a way that's real to him.
トーマス君の両親もその可能性を見極めたいと思ってきました。でもそれはどんなことができるかといった単純な問題ではありません。可能な限りの能力が得られたとしても、それで生きる価値が生じるものだろうかといぶかっているのです。本人は生きているという自覚すら持てないかもしれません。
Did you notice any development at all in Thomas during the first year of his life?
No.
We've never noticed any development in 2.5 years.
Nothing?
No.
He's got bigger.
Grown physically,
Yeah.
which is to be expected.
he ever known who you are, do you think?
We don't think so. He shows no signs of it.
He's never responded to you in any way?
Never in any pleasurable way. He's never shown any signs that he knows that we're his parents and that therefore we are someone special in his life.
It isn't just Thomas's
もう
apparent
死なせ
lack of
てやりたいと
development
両親
that
が
makes
感
his
じるのは
parents believe he
成
should
長
be
の
allowed
兆
to
しがないから
die.
だけではありません。
It's the daily rituals of
毎
his
日毎
life,
日
like
喉
having
から粘
mucus
液を
sucked
吸い
out
出
of
し
his
てあげない
throat,
と生き
which
てい
make him
けないとい
certain
った
his
状態
doctors
に
have got it wrong.
どうしても意味を見出
Their
せないの
view,
です。
supported by others who
生
care
存
for
させることの
Thomas,
意
is
義
that
が
in some
過大評
cultures,
価され
the
ているの
positive
ではないか
aspects
と
of
いう見
Thomas's
方は
existence are
専
being
門家の間に
exaggerated.
もあります。
Convinced
両
that
親は
they
自分たちこそ誰よりも息子のためを思っているという一心から
the credence of
裁判を起こす準備に
gathering
1年以上
evidence
費やしてきました。
Today,
依頼された弁護士はトーマス君について法廷で説明するための文章を作成しています。生きる価値がないことを説明するのです。
Fiona and I love Thomas very much. We feel that his existence is dominated by severe distress and suffering. He is not developed at all. We've concluded it must be in his best interest to cease the artificial feeding and hydration regime which keeps him alive. We do not come to this conclusion out of our own self-interest.
改めて脳の X 線写真の分析を依頼し、3人の専門家から別々に証言を得ました。トーマス君が CT スキャンを受けたのは生まれてほんの数日の時以来2度目です。脳の損傷の程度がよくわかりました。相談した3人の専門家全員がこれは最も重い障害だと認めました。脳の損傷について具体的に説明するとともに改善の見込みは全くないとする意見書がまとめられました。トーマス君から希望の持てる反応を期待するのは甘い考えだ。栄養補給をやめて安らかに死なせるべきだという結論でした。
On the basis of the evidence you saw of Thomas, what did you want to happen to him?
I wanted Thomas's suffering to end. And the only way that I could see for Thomas's suffering to end was for his feeding to be withdrawn and for him to die. That wasn't a good option for Thomas. It was the lesser of two evils, I believe.
トーマス君は喉にチューブを入れる代わりに胃にチューブを入れる手術を受けることになりました。これで手術を強いられるのは4回目です。
When I took him into hospital tonight, I was very, very upset. Yet again, he's got to go through another operation that inevitably will cause him some further discomfort and pain. As I walked away, the tears came into my eyes and I just wondered, where's it all going to end for him?
2週間後、手術の傷口が化膿してきました。痛々しい限りですが、果たして本人に痛みがあるのか、それは誰にも分かりません。しかし、痛みを感じている可能性はあるので、全く意識がない人よりもかえって気の毒だという専門家もいます。ところが、そういう痛みを感じる意識があるからこそ、この子には生きる権利があると主治医は言うのです。
He did suffer pain. I mean, actually, it's one of the arguments of saying his sensei, if you stuck a needle into him, or if you needing to take blood, or if you tried to manipulate his gastrostomy, that's when he got blocked. He was clearly having pain. If someone can respond to pain, then they must have some functioning nervous system, and they therefore have elements of humanity to them. And I don't think that you can stop nutrition in that situation.
しかし、困難な決断を早めに下していれば、トーマス君はこの苦しみを味わわずに済んだかもしれません。
Certainly everything that was done to Thomas after it had become clear that he was continually distressed and not making developmental progress, in my view, was inappropriate and not of benefit to Thomas.
One of the medical experts who examined Thomas told us that it was inappropriate to go on feeding him, that it was not good medicine.
Well, I would differ with that.
I mean, it was good medicine.
Well, I didn't think I had any option. I'm not sure what good medicine is in that context. I didn't feel I had an option to change anything that I was doing.
トーマス君の両親に言わせると、これは患者の苦痛を和らげるという本来の務めよりも、医師個人の倫理観を優先させていることになります。
Cry like that, it cuts through you. It's something that's unfortunately we've had to get used to over the past 2.5 years or so, and we have got used to it. We know when he can be consoled. We know that there are other times when he can't be consoled, and it really does cut through you in terms of it's upsetting, very difficult.
Times, Con, when Thomas's distress has been so great that you have wished that you could take the feeding tube out yourself?
I think that when Thomas is as distressed as he is at the moment, that thought, however fleetingly, will have gone through my mind.
トーマス君の裁判は重要な判例になるかもしれません。ほんのわずかであれ意識がある患者から栄養チューブを外すことがこの裁判で初めて許可された場合、医学界、ひいてはイギリス社会全体が生命なり生活の質を理由として安易に人の命を奪うようになるかもしれないと指摘されているのです。
What right do you think you have to say that somebody else should be allowed to die? That their life is not worth living?
We haven't decided that. Nature decided that for Thomas.
But you're taking a very specific decision in going to court and asking for permission to remove the feeding tube, and as a result, Thomas will die.
What right has anyone to say that Thomas should be kept alive?
トーマス君は生きているとも死んでいるとも言えないような状態だとある専門家は言いました。それにしても人間の生命なり生活の質について本人以外の人が評価を下してもいいものでしょうか。
I have no instrument for measuring quality of life. I can measure blood pressure and I can measure the effects of anticonvulsant medications, but I cannot measure quality of life. I'm not qualified to do that. And even at the extremes, with children like Thomas, I think that it's important to have respect for human life and to value it.
Do you accept that a decision to end Thomas's life might make disabled people feel much more vulnerable?
Of course. But I think that one can only reassure them, as far as it's possible to reassure them, that any decision about a person is not made by doctors as masters of destiny. I work with children who are disabled. I spend much of my life doing that. And I'm aware that I do not meet children like Thomas every day. I do not believe that doctors are going to take a decision about Thomas as a license to dispose of other children with disability.
But recently, トーマス君はもしも他の病院で生まれていたらこれまでとは違った対応をされた可能性があります。障害児を救うためには真剣な努力が必要だと主張しているベテランの小児科医ダービン博士にトーマス君を見てもらいました。トーマス君は目の前に迫ってくるものに気づくでしょうか。 瞬きもせず、顔に風が当たることにも気づきません。トーマス君と会い、脳の損傷についても聞いた博士は、現在の措置は間違っていると判断しました。もしもトーマス君がダービン氏の病院で生まれたとしたらどうなっていたでしょうか。
Once we were sure he was over any birth difficulties, then we would discuss with you the option of taking Stu out, seeing if he wanted to feed, and explaining that if he didn't want to feed, that would be very ominous for his future. And if he seemed quiet and we kept him comfortable, we wouldn't wish to put the tube down unless you felt very differently about it. You'd be very willing for you to offer him feeds to make sure that he hadn't changed his mind. And I believe he would have gradually got weaker, gradually got quieter, and died very peacefully.
So you're saying that if Thomas was born under your care in Birmingham, that you would have allowed him to die?
Yeah, he wouldn't be here today. It came as very much of a surprise, really, because we've always been told that he had to be fed, however that feeding process was to be carried out.
Do you think Thomas has been let down by his doctors?
He most certainly has.
My view is not a tiny minority. I think many paediatricians would have handled the situation in exactly the same way. So, I mean, yes, there are differences in opinion, but I don't think mine are particularly a minority view.
And yet you didn't listen to what the parents wanted for their child.
I listened very hard, and I explained to them that I didn't think I could do it.
And yes, in another hospital, it would have been done. He would have been allowed to die.
That's true.
How many doctors do you think would be prepared to do it?
I think more than discuss it.
So you're not out on a limb in that sense?
I don't believe so, no.
But Dr. Durbin's willingness to stop tube feeding Thomas isn't always with the official line taken by the British Medical Association. 非公式にはトーマス君の両親に対して人工的な栄養補給が最善の策とは言えないかもしれないと伝えながら表向きには主治医に賛成しているのです。
If there's a decision to withdraw nourishment, Thomas will definitely die. It's a death sentence. It's unequivocally a death sentence. There's no other end to that decision.
You said you supported the view that Thomas's doctors had taken. If there was another doctor who decided that in his view Thomas's prospects of improvement were so small that he would agree to withdraw artificial feeding, would you also accept the views of that doctor?
No, that's out with the law at the moment, as it stands.
You
That's what this
couldn't
case...
condone it.
No, you can't, no, it couldn't be condoned. We can't actually condone doctors acting out with the law unless they do it very clearly and are prepared to be judged in front of the law.
There are many people, and there are doctors, who believe that starving to death is inhumane.
Starving to death is inhumane if the patient suffers in that process. And I would never condone a suffering process. But if the patient is so unaware that they're not aware of hunger, they don't demonstrate, like all babies. Thomas could cry. Everybody knows babies cry with hunger. If they don't cry with hunger, they cannot be suffering hunger.
トーマス君の両親は裁判所に申し立てをしない限り手立てはないと考えました。けれども栄養補給の停止が認められたとして実際にそうしてもらえるでしょうか。すでに2歳半になり意識が少しはあるという子供から。
The easy option for Thomas was to continue treatment. The easy option was to continue the artificial feeding in the hope that perhaps nature would take its course at some later date and absolve us of any responsibility for making a decision. I believe that was wrong. I believe that as a society we need to recognize the fact that there will be other children like Thomas out there. Not many, but some other children with similar problems. I think we need to consider where we draw the line. At what point does medicine become inhumane and simply prolong suffering?
And you would have been personally prepared as a doctor to remove the tube and to let him die?
Yes.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
The court
裁判まであと数週間。トーマス君の両親は普通ならば人の子の親としてとても考えられないような、しかも誰も答えを出せないような問いを掲げて世の中の批判に立ち向かう覚悟でいるのです。
Sometimes you're overwhelmed with guilt that you could think that the very best thing for your child is that they die.
We certainly can win in this case, as his parents.
Life isn't about having a suction tube pushed into your throat and pushed into your nose to suck out mucus and saliva and vomit. Life isn't about having a nasogastric tube put into you to absolutely no avail because you are never going to recover from that situation. Life isn't about having your limbs manipulated because the joints are going to stiffen up and never be used voluntarily. Life isn't about that.
On the morning of
今年の
February
2
the
月
23rd this
23
year,
日、
Thomas
自
developed
宅
a
にいた
chest
トーマス
infection
君は
at
肺炎
home.
になりました。
A doctor from the
そこで
Queen's
往
local
診に行った
surgeon
一
came
家
to
のかか
visit,
りつけの医
but
師は
left, having decided that at last nature should be allowed to take its course.
It was a situation when he was unwell. It was inappropriate to do anything positive about it.
So it's possible that Thomas could have been alive today if more active measures had been taken.
I think it is possible.
Why didn't you try harder?
We were interested in what was best for Thomas and for his family, and that included managing him as he was and just leaving it, not trying harder. Trying harder wouldn't have helped Thomas.
これが自分の子供だったらと思うと本当胸の引き裂かれる思いだったんですが、子供本人の意思が確認できないだけに誰が治療をやめる判断を下すのか難しいですよね。
そうですね、だから救命だとか延命っていう技術がですね、急速に進歩してこれまでは助からなかった命が助かるようになったってこと自体はいいことなんですよね。しかしその助けるべきか、自然に任せるべきかっていうその価値観でしょうか、あるいは判断能力の方はですね、この技術進歩に追いついてない、そこにこういう悲劇があるわけですね。
重度の障害児の人権や将来を考えた上での治療停止ということなんですけれども、生命倫理の面では問題ないでしょうかね。
つまりね、どういう状態であれば人間として生きていると認められるのかっていう問題になってくると思うんですね。そして医療とその生命倫理の問題との取り組みっていう点で言いますとね、日本の場合はその一般の認識も医学会の対応もですね、欧米に比べるとやっぱり10年から15年は遅れてるんじゃないかっていう専門家の指摘があるわけですよね。で、欧米の場合は患者家族と医師がほぼ対等の関係にある。それに対して日本の場合はやっぱり医師が主導だという、風土の違いはあるんですけれども、一体最終的にですね、生死の判断を決断するのは誰なのか、それから臓器移植の脳死の問題とかですね、それから安楽死尊厳死の問題といったようなものも含めて、これから急いで検討しなければいけないこといっぱいあると思いますね。
今欧米ではこの安楽死も治療の一つであるというふうに見なされているそうですね。今日は重度の脳障害児の生きる権利と死ぬ権利についてお伝えいたしました。ではまた来週。